Welcome to WAVE 101 Lesson 10. Today Denise is going to talk about overcoming deceitful desires. And we're going to go over step 4 in devotional Bible study, responding back to God. Here's Denise.
David in the Old Testament was really clear that God was the answer for finding comfort. I want you to look in Psalm 63, 1-8 with me, and notice how many times David says, "you," speaking of God. He says, "Oh God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My body longs for you in a dry and weary land where there is no water. I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory. Because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands. My soul will be satisfied as with the richest of foods, and with singing lips my mouth will praise you. On my bed I remember you. I think of you through the watches of the night, because you are my help. I sing in the shadow of your wings. My soul clings to you. Your right hand upholds me." David is clearly not turning to deceitful desires for comfort, for help. And we know, most of us know that he did that at one point in his life. You know, he was restless and bored, and he saw Bathsheba, and he thought, that's what will help me, that will comfort me. And he sent for her, and we know that it just made his life a mess for a while. It sent him into a spiral of sin and despair. But here, David is very clear that God is the answer. God will comfort him. And he says, you know, on this earth is a dry and weary land. This is not where I'm going to find the comfort that I want. He was receiving comfort from God. So what I love to see, you know, is he said that God's love, you know, was just better than life to him. God's love satisfied him as with like he was eating the richest food. Now, just think about that for a moment. You know, he said God's love was like so satisfying. It was like this eating the richest of foods. Can you visualize the last time you bit into something so delicious, so rich and satisfying? You know, did it stop you in your tracks just a little bit, you know? Did your eyes close? You know, your head go back? You're like, ah, that is so delicious. Well, that is what David is saying his experience with God is like. Savoring God's love. And so David is clearly clinging to God for his comfort. So number 5, rather than turning to deceitful desires, David receives comfort from God. So as you surface and begin to follow your true desire for God, be aware that you will also encounter deceitful desires. Desires that promise fulfillment, you know, and they will numb you for a little while. But in the process, they are suppressing your desire for God and leading you away from the comfort that only God can give you. So the parable of the wolf implies the desire that you feed. That's the one that will grow. So if we're continually going to the car lot or to the refrigerator or to the mall or to the TV or to sleeping or recreation, that's the desire that will grow. So number 6, the desire you feed will grow stronger. What desire are you feeding? Blessings on you.
Today we're talking about step 4, the last step in devotional Bible study, responding back to God. But first let's review about the other steps. In step number 1, our objective is to just see the facts. In that step, you're very careful to withhold judgment and don't decide you understand the passage or you don't understand the passage. Instead, surface specific, maybe unrelated items from the passage and write them down. Jesus is speaking, maybe, or they're on the road to Jerusalem. Just surface the facts in step 1. In step number 2, you look at the facts you surface and try and identify what you can learn from the passage. This is something on the order of a principle. It's trickier, so don't worry about it, but it'll take more practice and will help you get there. In that step, something you could learn, for example, would be sometimes God wants us to leave our comfort zone. That's a lesson. It's stated as a principle. Sometimes God wants us to leave our comfort zone. Then the third step, in the third step, you take each lesson you've come up with and convert that lesson into a question. Just restate the lesson as a question. So a question might be, am I willing to leave my comfort zone if I believe God wants me to do something? That's it, taking that lesson and turning it into a question. Okay, in this last step, respond back to God. In this step, you're sitting back and you're considering what you've come up with out of this passage and how it touches your life. And you're listening for what God might be saying to you through this passage. Then you write out your response back to God. It usually takes the form of a 2 or 3 sentence prayer, and it's very simple. If you're following along in your books, there's a fill-in on page 54. This step, step 4, is where we ask and answer the question, how do you respond to God? In this step, don't be overly ambitious, promising great things. Instead, you might need to put training wheels on your response. If, for example, you believe God is wanting you to watch less television, just for example, instead of saying something like, I'll never watch another television show in the world the rest of my life, put training wheels on that response and say something more like, help me feel good about not watching more than an hour television tonight. Something like that. If you feel God wants you to value something that you don't particularly value, be honest. And instead say something like, Father, help me to value this because I know it's important to you. Help me see what you see in it. Do you see what I mean? So we're going to go over 2 passages that we've studied before, surface the lessons and challenges. Then I'll show you what a response would be like in each of those cases. The first passage is in Psalm 28, verse 7. Let me read it from the New American Standard. The Lord is my strength and my shield. In previous lessons, we surfaced several facts about that passage. So let's go on to the lesson. One of the lessons was, what is strong about me is that God is on my side. The Lord is my strength. What is strong about me is my connection with God. That's a lesson. And a challenge, turning that into a question, would be, do I really believe I am strong now that God is on my side? So if you were sitting back and thinking about those items surface from this passage. A response could be, help me see you as my strength. Help me not rely on my abilities or my assets. Help me to rely on you as my strength. Okay, see, that's the kind of response where you're engaging in the information you've surfaced. Another lesson we came up with from the Lord is my strength and my shield. You know, the shield is all about defense and about protection. So I am safe because God is on my side. That would be a lesson. It's a principle. It's what you can learn out of the passage. I am safe because God is on my side. You can turn that into a challenge, into a question, by saying, do I really believe I am safe now that God is on my side? A response to that might be, Father, thank you for the assurance that I have you as my safety. Help me feel more calm about that. Or whatever you feel. Do you see? This is an honest response to this passage. You could say, Father, I know you are stronger than my adversaries, and I should feel safe, but I don't, if that's how you feel. Help me to feel safe. Help me to focus on you and your strength, and know that you are king over all of these adversaries. Respond, be honest. Let's look at another passage, Genesis chapter 12, verse 1, reading from the New American Standard. Now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country, and from your relatives, and from your father's house, to the land which I will show you. We surfaced several facts when we studied this before. Let me just identify one lesson we came up with, and that was based on the fact that God told him to go without telling him where to go. He said, I will show you. And he did tell him eventually, but he had to take action before he knew all the details. The lesson we came up with was, sometimes God asks us to take action before we have all the information. And we turn that into a challenge, into a question that touches our life by saying, am I willing to take action if I feel God wants me to do something without having all the information? So a response, as you consider that, sometimes God wants people to do this. Am I willing to do this if God asks me to? A response might be, Father, help me to rely on you more than a full understanding of a situation. Help me to take action by faith in you. Something like that. You see how the response, it's all about you. This is where finally you have gotten the passage in a way that touches you, and you're considering and you're listening for what God might be saying to you through this passage. And you're just responding back to God. Be honest. And it will validate where you're at, where God's at, and give you food to grow with. That's the fourth step in Bible study. In additional lessons, we're going to go over all 4 steps and pick several different example passages so you'll get the sense for how to do these steps. Next time, Denise is going to talk about what do you want for your life? And I'm going to talk about the first example of 4-step Bible study. Until then, Lord bless you.